ध्रुवस्य च वयो विद्या गजेन्द्रस्य का कुब्जायाः किमुनाम रूपमधिकं किं तत्सुदाम्नो धनम् वंशः को विदुरस्य यादवपते रुग्रस्य किं पौरुषम् भक्त्या तुष्यति केवलं न च गुणैर्भक्तिप्रियो माधवः नमः कमलना भाय नमः कमलमालिने नमः कमलपादाय नमस्ते कमलेक्षण यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तग्वं ह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। Seekers of eternal truth, let's chant for a few minutes before I begin the discourse. Let's close our eyes in meditation on God as we chant His glorious name. Gopala, Gopala, Giridhar Govind Gopala,
Bhaj Gopala, Gopala, Giridhar Govind Gopala,
Jai Jai 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 Gopala, Gopala, Giridhar Govind Gopala,
Giridhar Govind Gopala,
Bhaj Giridhar Govind Gopala,
Jai Jai Gopala, Gopala,
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला 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 गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय 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 गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला जय जय
गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय
जय हो
गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला
जय जय गोपाला गोपाला Gopala.
Jai Jai Gopala, Gopala, Giridhar Govind Gopala.
बोलिए श्री राधा कृष्ण भगवान की
जय।
जगद्गुरु तम श्री कृपालु जी महाराज की
Jai.
Devotional listeners, now I humbly request your full attention. My topic this evening is about grace and surrender. We hear both these words. We talk about God's grace, we hear about it. We also hear about surrender, we hear the word surrender. But perhaps we don't know exactly what they really mean, what these words really mean. The scriptures are filled with references to grace and surrender. Kripa and Sharanagati in Hindi and Sanskrit. Kripa, grace, Sharanagati, surrender. These concepts are not only in Sanatan Vedic Dharma, Hinduism, but in all religions. Our scriptures tell us, the Vedas and Vedic scriptures tell us, that we cannot reach God using our self-effort. Sadhanau ghaira nasangaira labhya suchiradapi. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. There is no sadhan, there is no method through which, employing which you can know God. Naham vedair na tapasa, naham vedair na tapasa, na dane na chejaya. The Gita also says, in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, you cannot attain me by doing charity or by performing Vedic ceremonies and rituals. You cannot attain me through any method. Then is the situation hopeless? Can we never reach God? Not at all. We can certainly reach God. The Vedas tell us, and the Vedic scriptures tell us that we can reach God, but not through our efforts. When we exhaust all our efforts, when we throw our arms up in the air, when we say, I have no strength, I have no knowledge, I have no devotion, I cannot get to you, then God graces. God has to give us His grace in order for us to know Him. How can we know Him otherwise? Some say, well, God is available through the scriptures, is He not? We can read the Vedas and Vedic scriptures, we can read the Purans, we can read the Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana. There are so many scriptures that we have at our disposal. What about reaching God through the scriptures? Well, the problem here is that we have a material mind and intellect, a mind which is controlled by God's deluding power, Maya, and God's words in the scriptures are divine. They are not ordinary words. Sri Maharaj Ji used to say, Ye Shastra Ved koi tota maina ki kahani nahi hai. These are not storybooks, he used to say. These are divine words, the words of the Vedas and Vedic scriptures. We may think we understand, but we don't. The words seem to mean one thing, but the meaning is something totally different. With our material mind, we cannot, and intellect, we cannot understand, we cannot know the real meaning of the scriptures. It is only someone, a personality with a divine mind can read scriptures and understand them. And when he's divine, he doesn't need to read the scriptures. He knows them anyhow, without reading them. So we ordinary people with our material intellect, we cannot understand the scriptures. We cannot use any method which will work. That has been told to us by the scriptures. Only God's grace alone. Ram kripa binu sunu khagrai, jani na jai Ram prabhutai. In the Ramayana or Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas Ji, it is said that without God's grace, without Ram's grace, Ram, Bhagwan Ram, cannot be known. We need God's grace. But what does God's grace mean? Because we use this word grace, these words, God's grace, in many situations. When we embark on an endeavor, we make our effort and we say, well, with God's grace. When we try something and we don't succeed, we say, well, God didn't want it to succeed. God didn't give me His grace. But most of the times when I hear these words, when do I hear these words, God's grace? When I ask someone, are you coming to satsang? Are you coming to yugal kunj? And the answer very frequently is, well, if God graces me, I'll be there. If God graces me, I will go to the mandir, I will come to the temple. If God graces me, I will do devotion. If God graces me, I will meditate on Him. But we don't wait on God's grace for in material endeavors. In other words, we don't wait on God's grace to start a business, we make our efforts. We don't say, well, if God graces me, I'll get out of bed in the morning, I'll go off to work, I will go off to take care of my business. We don't wait on God's grace. But when we don't want to do something, we put God in there. Well, God didn't want it, so I didn't make it to satsang. So if you probe a little more, well, what time did you leave for home to come to satsang? Well, that's it, I didn't leave home to come to satsang. Then how can you say that God didn't want you to go? Then there's no answer, because the real answer is that I didn't want to come. I had something better to do. I was busy somewhere else. But we use these amazing words, really words with a lot of weight. God's grace. Now, how can you say anything about God's grace? God didn't want you to come to satsang, so I can't say anything now. So we use the words God's grace incorrectly. We also say that if God graces me, then this work will happen. God is the worker, God is the performer of all my actions. God is the one who does everything for me. Actually, that's not true. God enables us to perform all our actions. God has given us a mind, and every action starts with a mind. We think about doing something, then we actually do it. So God enables us to perform all our actions, but He leaves the choice of actions up to us. God is not responsible for that, but many people say, God is a performer of all actions. Yes, someone like Saint Kabir, he says, I am not the performer of my actions, God is the one. And he is using these words correctly. He is right, because he has surrendered completely to God, and now God has taken over, and all of his actions are in fact the actions of God. So a saint, one who has surrendered fully to God, he says, I am not the doer, God is the doer. And he's right. But when we use these words, we're not using them correctly. We should not be using these words, that God is the performer of all my actions. We haven't allowed Him to perform our actions for us. We have not surrendered to Him. So God will have to give us His grace, and then we will know who He is, what He is. We will know everything about Him. But what does it mean to receive God's grace? The word for grace in Sanskrit is prasadam, prasad. Prasad means grace. So when God graces us, when He gives us His prasad, what does that really mean? When God graces an individual, then God gives him all his property. God gives everything He has to that individual. God gives that individual unlimited knowledge and unlimited bliss or happiness. Two main things God gives are unlimited knowledge and unlimited happiness. So now the individual who is receiving God's grace becomes just like God because God has given him everything that he has. And we must not think that God has given everything to this fellow, now God is left with nothing. No, God has everything in its unlimited limit. So even if He gives unlimited knowledge to the individual, God still has unlimited knowledge. Even when God gives His unlimited bliss to someone, God still has unlimited happiness. Because unlimited minus unlimited equals unlimited. God doesn't run out of knowledge and happiness. So when God graces someone, it means that He's giving all His properties to that individual. Now this individual's eyes, they will look the same to us, but he is able to see God in every particle of creation. We are seeing this world and we see walls, we see doors, we see trees, we see humans, we see other creatures. But what this saint, the one who has realized God, what he sees is God everywhere. Siya Ram Maya Sab Jag Jani. He sees Sita and Ram, he sees God everywhere. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, say the eternal Vedas. Everywhere he looks, there is God, he sees God. God is all-pervading, God is omnipresent, but we are not able to see because we are wearing as if glasses of Maya. You know, if you're wearing red-colored glasses, everything looks red to you. Everything will look red. If you're wearing blue-colored glasses, everything will look as if it's blue. In the same way, because we are as if wearing Maya glasses, and everything looks as if it's material. Everything is worldly. Even when God comes to earth, we see God as being an ordinary person. When Ram comes to earth, when Sri Krishna, God comes as Ram, God comes as Krishna, we see him as an ordinary person because we are wearing the glasses of Maya. Our mind is controlled by this deluding potency called Maya. But the one who has now received God's grace, he no longer has the glasses called Maya on. He doesn't have those glasses. Those glasses have been taken away. Now God has given him divine eyesight. So he sees God everywhere. He sees God in the one who's praising him, and he sees God in the one who's trying to kill him. He sees God in every creature. He sees God in the holiest of places, and he sees God in the filthiest of places. He will see God in everything and in everyone. His mind now is pervaded by God, so he no longer has thoughts of anger, greed, hatred, envy. Because Maya, the energy called Maya, has all these attendants, anger, greed, hatred. When Maya is no longer there, then how can these attendants be there? They have left forever. So there's no anger, no greed, no hatred, no pride, no envy, nothing. Only thoughts of compassion for the entire world. Divine thoughts. And this is what is meant by receiving God's grace, that everything, the senses, mind, and the intellect, they all become divine. God is now perceived everywhere. Now we hear that God is causelessly merciful. Binu hetu sanehi, akaran kripalu. He bestows His grace without any conditions attached. His grace is unconditional. Saint Tulsidas says in Vinay Patrika, Aisa ko udar jag mahi, binu seva jo drave deen par, Ram saris ko nahi, Aisa ko udar jag mahi. My Lord is merciful, causelessly merciful. Binu seva jo drave deen par. He bestows grace unconditionally. But then our question is, why have we not attained His grace? If His grace is given unconditionally, then why did He not grace me? Why don't I have a divine mind, a divine intellect, divine senses? Why? I don't understand. Why? Well, the scriptures give us the answer to that question. They say that God is indeed causelessly merciful. At the same time, they say you've got to surrender to Him. You have to surrender to Him to receive His grace. Todasyeva sharana amahasya, says Rigved, te tva mada indra madayantu shushminam tu viradhasam jaritre eko devatra dayase, says Rigved again. Uduttishtha swadhvarastavano Devya Kripa, again Rigved. Meaning God will give you His grace if you surrender to Him. Mamekameva sharana matmanam sarvadehinam yahi sarvatma bhavena yayasyahi kuto bhaya. Bhagavad Puran, the most exalted, the most popular, the most commonly read and talked about Puran. The greatest of the 18 Purans is Bhagavad Puran, also known as Bhagavad Mahapuran or Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavatam, it is said, Sri Krishna says, I will give you my grace, but only if you surrender to me. Tameva sharanangaccha sarva bhavena bharat. In the Gita, Sri Krishna says to Arjun the same. Sharan mein aao, kripa ho jayegi. Surrender to me. At so many places in the scriptures, God has said, surrender to me and I shall give you my grace. So we try to surrender to Him. Not knowing how to surrender, we perform ceremonies while reciting words that have similar meanings, such as, I surrender to you, kindly forgive me, forgive all my offenses. We say to God, I am surrendered to you, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. You are my only shelter, I surrender to you. We say to God in so many different ways, in so many different languages. We kneel down before God, we prostrate ourselves fully before God. I'm surrendering to you. Dandavat pranam, meaning dande ki tarah let jana. The whole body is laying flat on the ground and we are doing dandavat pranam. We are prostrating before God. And what we are thinking is, I'm surrendering myself. But as the Bible says, kingdom of God is not in words. God is not impressed with our words. God is not impressed with our ceremonies and rituals. God doesn't say, wow, you're laying down so nicely. Just like a dandavat pranam you're doing to me. I'm pleased with that. God is not about anything physical. He does not look at anything that we do physically. It's what is in our mind that He takes note of. He takes note of what's going on in the mind. So we could be doing ceremonies, performing rituals, speaking fancy words in Sanskrit, Latin, Hebrew, but He does not take note. There was a scholar who was reciting Vedic mantras in a temple, and he was a very learned scholar. And the scholar saw a very poor man who was wearing rags, and he was praying to God also. He was reciting a Sanskrit shlok. But the scholar noticed that the pronunciation was totally wrong. And he scolded this man. He said, "You're not speaking proper Sanskrit. And if you don't know how to speak it properly, why speak it? You should not be doing this. This is an offense." Because you see, this devotee, the poor man, he was saying to God, "Ramaya Namah, oh Ram, I bow to you. Krishnaya Namah, oh Krishna, I bow to you. Vishnaya Namah, oh Vishnu, I bow to you." But the scholar said, "Oh, you don't know Sanskrit. It's supposed to be Vishnave Namaha, not Vishnaya Namaha. You don't know how to conjugate properly." So the learned scholar is scolding the illiterate man, but God is saying, God is thinking, I am very pleased with this man, because even though he does not speak proper Sanskrit, yet he is speaking to me from his heart. He has tears in his eyes, and that's what I take note of. I don't care about correct pronunciation of Sanskrit verses. It doesn't matter to me. So we try to surrender to Him through physical ceremonies, rituals, and through physical words. But surrender is from our mind. True surrender is that when we surrender our mind to God. In other words, loving God is what surrendering to God means. Loving Him, giving Him our mind, giving Him our heart. That is what surrender is. We can speak to Him in any language. We can speak to Him in Hindi, Punjabi, Gujarati, Marathi, Bengali, English, French, Spanish, any language. God is not about language. Bharat mein hota na bhashavad. People from the south of India will not speak Hindi. People from the north of India will say, no, we must speak Hindi. So there is language wars. But God is not involved in any of that. He understands every language, but mainly He understands the language of the heart, and we must speak to Him from the heart. So surrendering to God, meaning giving God our mind, our heart. God says, just surrender your mind to me. Surrendering the mind means don't do anything, just surrender your mind. Obey my instruction. I will tell you what to do. You do that. You see, because some people say, if God is causelessly merciful, why is He asking me to surrender? That's a condition, isn't it? Surrender first, then I'll grace you. But God says, do you know what surrender means? Surrender means to do nothing. Let's say two countries are at war with one another, and one country surrenders to the other. So the troops, they put up the white flag, they put up their hands, I surrender. We surrender. We are at your mercy. In other words, we will not fight anymore. We will not use our weapons. We are at your mercy. Even in the world, when we talk about surrender, it means that we do nothing. Someone declares bankruptcy. It means I cannot fulfill my financial obligations. I surrender. I put up my hand. I cannot do this. So I'm at your mercy. I'm at the mercy of the court. Surrendering to God means doing nothing, because it is the mind that performs all our actions, and God says, give me your mind, and I will take over. I will take over as the driver of your life car. You don't have to do anything. I shall do everything for you. And this is why Kabir Das Ji says, Jo kare, so Hari kare, hot Kabir Kabir. All the works of Kabir are in fact the works of God. So we cannot attain God using our own efforts. We need to have God's grace, and God graces the one who surrenders to Him, and surrendering to God means giving Him our mind. And mind is the performer of all our actions. So in fact, there is no condition behind attaining God's grace. He truly is causelessly merciful. So why have we not attained His grace? Why haven't we surrendered to Him then? So Shri Krishna tells us in the Gita, Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhama mayaya prahitagyana asuram bhavamashrita. Shri Krishna says, Arjun, there are 4 kinds of individuals who fail to surrender to me. Number one is the person who is completely ignorant of who God is. He's completely ignorant about God's instructions. He does not keep God in mind at all. He lives his life thinking life is all about eating, sleeping, getting an education, getting married, having children, earning money, keeping some money in the bank, spending some money, going on a vacation once in a while, and then dying one day. Shri Krishna says this kind of individual is like there are goats in the slaughterhouse. One goat is being slaughtered, getting its head chopped off, and the goat right behind this goat that's being slaughtered is just happily munching on grass, not aware that its end is very near. So is the individual who happily goes about in the world, not understanding, not realizing that life is coming to an end very soon, and everything that he strived for, everything he has accumulated will be left behind. Shri Krishna says, the fool will not surrender to me. Namam dushkritino mudha. Mudha means fool. So there's a fool who has nothing to do with God. Secondly, naradham. This is the individual who has heard about the scriptures, he has listened to lectures, he has done some devotion, but he's not very actively pursuing God. He is too lazy and too careless to actually sink his teeth into devotion. He just says devotion is just going jai ho, going to the mandir, ringing the bell, taking the arati and waving it in a clockwise fashion. That's all he does. He knows what is to be done because he has heard enough lectures, but he doesn't do it. It's like a man who has been hungry for so many days. He's been hungry for 5 days. He's starving. And then somebody brings him food. Then he says, well, it takes so much effort to eat this food. I actually have to extend my hand. I have to grab hold of the food. Then I have to bring it all the way to my mouth. Then I put it in my mouth and I have to actually chew this food. I can't be bothered. So he doesn't bother. Naradham. Then number 3 is the individual who has lots of doubts about God. No matter what he hears about God, he'll put a doubt there. He'll insert his doubt. He listens to the Ramayana and says, I don't understand why Ram hid behind the tree to kill Bali. That was not right. I don't understand why Krishna was going around stealing butter from the homes of the gopis. Stealing is a sin. He shouldn't have done that. I don't understand. Why did he do this? Why did he do that? He goes on just doubting everything. Shri Krishna says he will never come to me. And he asks silly questions like, I just want to know, what was the name of Shravan Kumar's mother and father? That's all you want to know? He will ask questions, but then after asking a certain question, when he gets the answer, he says, the answer didn't suit me. It doesn't suit me. I don't think it's right. And he says, I've asked 10 other people, 10 other speakers this question, but nobody has been able to answer this question. When he asks questions, he already knows he's not going to accept the answer. As he's asking the question, he's looking around. You see what a great question I'm asking? He's filled with pride. I'm asking such a great question. And after that, he argues with the speaker. No, I don't think this is the right answer. So his questions are not born of a humble and inquisitive mind. They're born of a doubting mind. So he has lots of doubts. Shri Krishna says, Sanshaya Atma Vinashyati, Bhagavad Gita. The one who has doubts will definitely fall from the spiritual path. He cannot remain on the path. Because the works of God are divine, and he's trying to judge them using his material mind. One day I was talking about Yogamaya Shakti. God and godly saints have a power called Yogamaya. And with this, what this power does is that it allows God and godly saints to remain divine on the inside, all the while performing works of Maya, ordinary material works on the outside. So these divine saints who grace this earth from time to time, divine messengers of God, they get married, they have children, they are sometimes kings, like King Dashrath, King Vibhishan, King Janak. They declare wars on other kings. They are performing all sorts of actions. So it makes them look like they're worldly people, but they are working with the power called Yoga Maya. So the third type of individual who does not surrender to God is the one who has lots of doubts. And finally, Shri Krishna says there is the individual who not only does not go towards God himself, he tries to stop others from going towards God also. He will try to put doubts in people's minds. Oh, so you're worshipping Krishna, are you? Sit down with me. You have an hour or so? Let me tell you who Krishna is. He was just a trickster. He was just a yogi. He used to trick people. Oh, he's not God. You're practicing devotion to Krishna? No, this is not good. And he thinks it's his mission to, quote unquote, enlighten people. In fact, he is so much in the dark and he tries to dissuade others from going towards God, which is the biggest sin of all. To stop someone from going toward God is the biggest sin. Because the purpose of our existence is to know God, to love God, and to reach God. But if someone in a family is going towards God, let's say a young man, he has started going to satsang and he's doing sadhana, he's doing devotion at home, and the family says, what is he doing behind closed doors? Where is he going? And he's looking like he's going to leave home any day now. He has no intention of doing that, because you don't have to leave home to do devotion, but they already are getting very worried. He's going to leave home, you'll just see. And then without any reason they say, oh well, we're going to go to his Guruji and we're going to tell him a thing or two. What did Guruji do? Guruji told the same thing to hundreds or thousands of people. But someone understood the message and he is bringing devotion into his life. This is not the fault of Guruji, that this person's sanskars are such that he understood the message. People say, Radhe Radhe, at this young age? What is the age, right age, to practice devotion? When you become old, and you can't even sit down, and there's so much mucus in your throat that you can't utter the name of God, and mainly your mind is so filled with the world because now you have children and grandchildren and even great-grandchildren. The area of attachment has become so vast, then you go ahead and try to think about God. That's the right time. When the mind won't even allow you to think about God. Angangalitam palitam mundam dashana vihinam jatam tundam vriddho yati grihitva dandam tadapi namunchatyasha pindam bhaj govindam govindam bhaj mudhamati. Adi Shankaracharya says, when old age comes, with the advent of old age, the body becomes very weak. There are no teeth left in the mouth, no hair left on the head. The legs become wobbly, and he cannot walk without the help of a cane. So the body is deteriorating, but there's something within that is becoming younger and younger. And that is desire for the world. The body is becoming older and older, and the desire for the world is getting younger and younger. What a dangerous combination. And so many people in the world, most of the people in the world say that is the right time to start practicing devotion. But tritiyena tapastattam chaturthe kim karishyati. If we have not practiced any devotion in the first 3 stages of life, how are we going to suddenly become devotees of God in the 4th and the final stage, old age? You know, it takes a long time to develop a good habit. And devotion to God, that is the best habit. It takes a long time to bring God into the mind. It takes lots of efforts. Lots of efforts. It takes no effort at all to bring the world into the mind. It takes no effort at all for us to think about the world. But if we are asked to think about God, it's very tough. The mind says, no, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. So it takes a long, long time. We need to start in childhood and continue in youth, continue in middle age. Then we can become devotees of God, even in old age. There's so many misconceptions. A lot of people have, they speak with such authority. You know, ye baal dhoop mein safed nahi hue hain. You know, I didn't get this gray hair just by sitting in the sun. You know, I have lots of experience. What experience? What is your experience telling you? My experience tells me that your childhood and your youth, you just need to just be in the world. And in your middle age, well, you have family now, you need to carry the burden. And in your old age, then nobody will want to talk to you, nobody will want any advice from you, people will reject you, then you turn towards God. But why would the mind turn suddenly towards God? How? I will tell you a personal anecdote. I was living in someone's house. I'm always staying in somebody or the other's house. And the family, the children had gone to school, and the husband and wife had gone to work. So the husband's mother, very elderly mother, was at home, and I was there. So she asked me, she said, "Bitiya, put on the TV for me." I said, "All right, Mataji." And she said, in those days we had the VCRs, VCD, the tapes, videotapes. And she said, "Can you put in a videotape?" And I said, "I'll put the Ramayana or Mahabharata." And she said, "No, those give me a headache." I said, "What would you like to watch?" No, she didn't want a video. She wanted to turn on the TV. And I said, "What is there on TV that you would understand?" Because she didn't understand English. She said, "I want to see Days of Our Lives." And I said, "But what would you understand from that?" Ramayana, Mahabharata, she does not want to watch because watching them gives her a headache. And she wants to watch a serial. And I asked her, "Mataji, what will you understand?" And she said, "I don't understand English, but I can understand the expressions. They are in a loving mood, or they're angry with one another, they're fighting now, and it's like real life, so I enjoy that." her son and daughter-in-law said to me, you know, wherever Mataji goes, she starts creating fights and quarrels between family members. That's, oh, now I understand. She wants to see that on TV as well. So the mind doesn't immediately and spontaneously start taking interest in God. But many people will tell you that. So Shri Krishna says there are 4 kinds of people who will not surrender to him. Now where do we fit in? Because we think, okay, I'm not surrendered to God. Why have I not surrendered? What kind of person am I? Which category do I fall into? And I believe that we fall into the second category. We do know the category called naradham. We do know, we have certain amount of knowledge about God. But we are too lazy, we're too careless, we are procrastinators. I'll do it some other time. Some other time. I'm too busy right now in my life. Hindi में बोलते हैं ना कि मुझे तो मरने तक की फुर्सत नहीं है. It's a very unique expression. When in Hindi we say, and the translation in English is, I'm so busy, I don't even have the time to die. I'm so busy. As if death will say, oh, you're too busy, I'll come back later. Yamraj will say to the attendant, no, this guy is too busy. Go when he's not so busy. Death will come when it's supposed to come. But we say, no, I'm too busy even to die. I'm so busy in life. So we belong to the second category. We have not surrendered to God, therefore we have not attained His ultimate grace. We have been graced by God in so many ways, but His ultimate grace, through which we may know Him and be with Him forever and ever in His divine kingdom, in His Golok. That grace has not been given to us simply because we have not desired it. The moment we start desiring it, that is the moment that we will start surrendering. We will surrender. The concept of surrender will make lots of sense to us. I will surrender to God because now I have understood. So when God graces us, it means that He gives us a divine mind, divine senses, divine intellect, and the whole mind is pervaded by God. The entire world is pervaded by God. There is no worldly thought in the mind because Maya has left. And we get to that situation, we become eligible for God's grace when we surrender to Him. And surrendering to Him means giving Him our mind. We must not be fooled into thinking, we must not think that surrendering to God, I can surrender to God by using words or by performing certain ceremonies. Words don't work in the kingdom of God. Ceremonies leave no impression on His mind, nothing. He is pleased when we give Him our mind and our heart. We don't have to know Sanskrit, we don't need to know what this scripture says, what that scripture says. There's only one knowledge we need to have, and that is He's mine and I'm His. He's the only one who's mine. He has always been mine and will always remain my one and only. And I am His because I am not this body, I am the Atma. And the Atma is a part and parcel of God. That's who I am. I am the Atma. I don't have the Atma as the soul, I don't have any qualifications such as I'm brown or I'm white or I'm dark or I'm light, I am Hindu or I'm Christian, I'm Muslim, I'm Jewish, I'm male or I'm female. The soul is none of this. The soul is neither male nor female. The soul is neither Hindu nor Christian. The soul is neither tall or short. The soul is ageless. It is eternal. It was always in existence. It will always remain in existence. We are that soul. We have taken unlimited, uncountable births, one after the other, one after the other. According to the actions we performed in our human lifetimes, we are given the body of a human once again to continue on the journey, or we are demoted to life as an animal or an insect or a bird or even a plant or a tree. These are all living creatures. It's all very systematic. God gives us the body that we are deserving of. This time around, we have received the best body of all, the body of a human. We are so blessed. We are the most fortunate. We have this opportunity to reach God in this very lifetime. Following the instructions of the Guru. Because you see, before you surrender to God, you need to surrender to a Guru. How can we surrender to God? Who will teach us how to surrender to God? This lecture that I'm giving, this talk that I'm giving, it is only being given because Jagadguru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj has given it to me to share. It's not from my own mind. Sri Maharajji, the Guru of all Gurus, Jagadguru, Jagadguruttam, even the best of all Jagadgurus, Jagadguruttam Sri Kripaluji Maharaj has taught the world these lessons that I'm sharing with you. Without a Guru, we cannot surrender to God. We don't know the first thing about God. God is living in our heart and has always lived in our heart, but He's a stranger to us. When the Guru comes along, he says, wake up. You're not the body, you are the soul. And lecture after lecture, given in a sequence, so that they all make sense, so that when we listen to them, we feel, oh, now I understand. Oh, I see, I had never understood that. Now I understand. When that Guru, that divine teacher comes to earth, with God's grace, we are able to recognize him as a Guru. And then, with his grace, we start learning about God. We start learning about the nature of God. We start learning about so many things about God. We start learning about the concepts of grace and surrender. We cannot surrender to God in any other form of life. The other creatures don't have the advanced mind that we have as humans. They don't understand what it means to surrender to God. They don't know about the mind. The other creatures are only thinking about eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithuna. That's it. That's it. We humans, if we are only thinking about these four aspects of life, then we are no better than these animals. What differentiates us from them is that our mind is more developed. And we can think about intangible concepts. We can think about the higher truths of life. We can think about God. We can think about grace and surrender and other such concepts. So, grace and surrender. We attain the grace of God, the ultimate grace of God, through which we may know Him. And we attain that grace only when we surrender to Him. My topic for tomorrow will be characteristics of surrender. Scriptures and saints have told us that there are certain characteristics of surrender. We should get to know them. We must keep them in mind. So my topic tomorrow will be that. We will continue to talk about surrender. बोलिए श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय।
लाडली लाल की
जय।
जय जय श्री
राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री